Dear Helen, I hope you can share my story. Men also go through a lot, though we don't often talk about it. I got married 4 years ago to the woman I thought was my missing rib. My wife lied to me, and I discovered the truth after our marriage, but it didn't change how I felt about her. She told me she was a baker with workers and students under her, living in Abuja at the time while I lived in Lagos. We discussed the long distance relationship and she agreed to move to Lagos and start anew. So I paid for a shop for her a month before our marriage. After the wedding, I gave her some money to support her business, but she said she needed to rest for another month. I didn't mind, and a month later, she started the business. I worked too, so I wasn't aware of what was happening in her shop. Within 4 months, my wife stopped going to the shop. When I asked her why, she said the business was slow. What I didn't know was that my wife had been arrested by a customer who claimed she failed to deliver the exact cake ordered for her birthday. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I bailed her out of the police station and discovered that everything she told me about owning her own shop in Abuja was with co-workers and students was a lie.
Okay.
She was actually learning the job. Okay, so she lied that she was
She
a
was
boss,
boss, yeah, and she owned, and
but
she
in
had
a normal sense, she
customers and
was
all that
a
stuff.
student.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
Despite this, I loved her so much that I let it slide. Unfortunately, the over 2 million naira I spent on the shop was in vain, and she became a housewife. Within a month, she asked for money to attend skincare training, and I provided it. Wow, what a husband. Caring husband. She started the training, but unfortunately, I fell sick and needed surgery. The surgery wasn't successful and I couldn't work anymore. I stayed home from January of last year and continued receiving pay until May, when my company informed me that they could no longer pay me. That's when our real problems began. Feeding became a challenge and my family stepped in to help. I noticed my wife became distant, going out and returning late, around 11 p.m. I was alone at home, using a wheelchair to move around the kitchen. This is sad. I
Yeah.
stopped complaining, and by August, our rent expired. We had to move from our 3 bedroom apartment to a 1 bedroom apartment in less desirable environments. My wife complained about the new place, saying she couldn't breathe and wasn't comfortable. I begged her to manage with me until I got back on my feet. With my family's help, we survived. When I gave her money to buy foodstuffs, she used it to buy a dress instead.
Long or short.
Like a dress, like money for food, a dress instead. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, that's when I realized I didn't know the woman I married. My second surgery was on November 17th, which I was able to pay for with the help of my family
Okay.
and a few friends from work. The surgery was successful and I'm recovering well. I'm grateful to God for that. However, my wife's behavior has worsened. She was a dedicated chorister in a church before we got married, but now she doesn't attend church anymore. When I ask her to pray with me, she tells me to go ahead, saying she's already prayed. I've been applying for remote jobs online and recently had a successful virtual interview. I started working from home in December, but my wife doesn't know yet. I was hoping to surprise her, but she surprised me first. On 31st December at 11:45 p.m., she told me she wants a divorce, saying she's tired of the relationship. I was devastated. I don't ever want to go through a divorce in my life. I begged her to give me time, considering my recuperation, and promised that everything would be all right. She refused, saying she can't. She claimed she'd already informed her family and they supported her decision. Since we don't have kids, she moved out on January 2nd. I had to inform my family and my mom came to stay with me and take care of me. That's why I'm writing this. Helen, my wife recently found out that I have a remote job that pays in dollars and she came back to my house last week to apologize.
It sounds like the case of the prodigal son.
She came back to my house last week to apologize, saying she doesn't know what came over her. Now I'm angry and confused. A part of me wants her back, but I'll never be able to trust her again, despite her promises to change. I'm moving to a new apartment, and sincerely, I wish she didn't have to come with me. As a Christian, I don't wants a divorce. I'm open to hearing advice from others. God bless you. Okay, back to you, Mr. Dapo. What do you think about this story? Because I know you're a man, you are married, you have kids. So put yourself in his shoes. What do you think about the story?
So they don't have kids, right?
Yeah, according to him, they
According
don't
to
have. Yeah.
him, they don't have kids. How do I start? It's quite interesting because there are some points there that I actually picked out. The first point for me was the fact that they started a long distance relationship. So, how long for? How well did you actually understand the person you were talking to, who was probably like what 600 kilometers, 700 kilometers away from you on a daily basis?
Mm,
So, yes, you do chat, but there are quite a lot of things that you don't see from each other.
mm.
So, it's based on what? It's based on mutual respect, it's based on trust, correct?
Yes, correct.